Aviary offers some really great tools for free. Probably my favorite of these tools is their audio editor. You can do a lot with the audio editor. You can make your own music, but what I typically use it for is podcasting, either myself to add to my website, or I have students podcast some of their projects. I'm going to go into the Edit Audio feature. And this editor will allow you to really easily add some audio content to your website, or even just create an audio announcement to play live to your class that they can really get a kick out of. Like some of the other free audio editors out on the web, it allows you to just easily record your voice, get it on the web. What is different about Aviary is that it allows me to easily edit that content too. It's not just record it once and I'm stuck with it. I can really enhance it, edit it, and make it just the way I like it. So when I'm in Aviary, you can see I get many different audio tracks to use. So typically track 1 I'll use for the words I want to say. Track 2 might be music. But you can see you can add all kinds of different effects to all of these different tracks. There's as many there as you'd like to use, or you can stick with just 1 or 2. I've put written directions on my website, but I'm going to record a little audio podcast to enhance those with. And to get started, all I need to do is to click the record button. Now you'll get prompted with a message by Adobe to allow or not allow your microphone. You do need to allow it, or it's not going to record your voice. I'm just working with a very inexpensive computer microphone headset that I bought off Amazon for around $6. You can get those at Target or Walmart too. They just run a little bit more there. To record your message, you just click the red record button, and that's how you also stop the recording. So you can click the red button. You always want to wait a couple of seconds, otherwise you'll cut off the beginning. And again, we can edit empty silence out very easily, so give yourself some extra time, record your message, and click stop. Now if you mess up, you can always edit some of those mess ups later. If you really just goofed up though and you want a clean start, obviously I don't want to use this in my podcast, I'm just going to click that record button again, and it'll erase what I've just recorded and let me start new. Hello students, here's what's happening these next 2 weeks in class. First, and I hope this comes as no surprise, remember the 100-point project assignment due this week. That's right, your Unit 3 Rock Cycle projects are due this Friday. The directions, examples, and rubric are all posted on my website, so please carefully look at those resources. Other students have commonly lost points for not including all parts of the summary and conclusion, so please spend a little extra time reviewing the requirements for those sections. And procrastinators, please listen up. Something big is approaching soon. That's right, the final exam is less than 2 weeks away. We've covered a lot of amazing science topics this semester, and the final is a terrific opportunity to earn important points and show me what you've learned. There are review guides on the website, but what's typically even more helpful is attending one of our review sessions. Check out the dates and put 1 or 2 in your calendar. Okay, so I have a podcast that's about a minute long. That'll work. If I click this play button, it's going to give me a preview of exactly what I've just said. Hello students, here's what's happening these next 2 weeks in class. If that sounds good to you and you want to go ahead and use it in your project, you just click the Import to Project button. You can use the default name, or you can give one that makes a little bit more sense maybe to you that you'll remember later. And click Save. Now that imported audio file that I just recorded shows up over here under my imported files. I recorded my whole podcast in one take, but when I'm working with students and having them podcast something that's longer in length, I will sometimes have them record in smaller sections. So if I wanted to add something to this message, if there was something else that I remembered, I can just click the record button. Again, click that red button to record, click it again to stop, and I could import this. And there's my second part. Now these voice sections I've recorded live over here kind of in my library of imported files, but they are actually not part of my podcast at all. Right now, this editor is completely empty, so I need to drag over my sections. And so I'm going to go to the first part, which is podcast for December 1st. I'm going to put it on track 1. Track 1 will be my audio track. Now I see these 1, 1, 2, 1 measurements up here, and these refer to tempo. That doesn't make as much sense to me as time, so I'm just going to change my view from tempo to time. And I can start my audio announcement right at the very beginning of the podcast. I'm going to give it just a couple of seconds, 2 or 3 seconds, because I want to have some music come in. You have zoom in and out buttons up here that allow you to see more or less detail, and I'm going to zoom out. The peaks refer to how loud my voice is at different times. But if I want to see more of the podcast, I can zoom out a little bit. If I want to see the whole thing, I have to zoom out quite a bit. Now to preview your message, you have this red marker here, and wherever you put the marker is where when you click the play button it's going to start. So I'm going to go ahead and click this, or put this marker at the beginning, and I can either click the play button or I can hit my space bar. Hello students, here's what's happening these next 2 weeks in class. First, and I hope this comes as no surprise, remember the 100-point project assignment due this week. Alright, so you get a nice preview, you can see how that works. Now, I want to enhance my podcast with a little bit of music. When I first logged into Aviary, there was a message about quantum tracks. I don't see that anymore. To get it back, I can click this library button, and I'm going to maximize my screen window here so I can see all of it. I'm going to click that library button again. I lost my imported files because I clicked the wrong button. There we go. So now I see it again, and if I agree to the terms of this library, I get some wonderful copyright-free tracks for me to use, as long as I don't turn around and make money off their products. You can read their full agreement there, but you can use some of these accompaniments to go with your audio. There's many different styles. You can see I have different categories here. There's CD styles and keywords, and I can, within each CD, I get several different choices here, and for each one, for each song, I get intros, loops, and ends. And you just click the little play button here to preview it. A lot of times I'll go into styles and I'll scroll through. They have many different styles, leisure, and you can just kind of decide what you like. Or you can go into CDs once you get used to the offerings and pick which one you want. I'm going to use Tangelo for this demo. And there's 8 different intros that I can choose from. And if I want this intro, I can pick whichever one I like. We'll go with number 3. And I just drag it in. Now it's going to need to be on a different track than my narration, so I'm going to put it on track 2. Now the loops are the middle parts, and these are designed to, you can either repeat the same loop over and over. I like to mix them up so that it sounds a little bit different, but this is where you can become a little sound maker. And I'm just going to mix in some of these different loops. I've mixed in now enough loops to fill most of my podcast. I can see my narration ends here. So I'm getting close to the end. I'm going to switch to ends. And I'll just pick the first one here. The music really enhances a podcast. Let's go back to the beginning and see how it sounds. Students, here's what's happening these next 2. Couple of problems. I can see definitely that the music is drowning out my voice. So what I'm going to do is go down to the controls. To get a little bit more room editing, I'm just going to click the library button, collapse that down, and I'm going to go to the slider underneath track 2, which is for volume, and I'm going to turn it down. And I'm going to hit the space bar and just keep checking it until the balance sounds good between music and my voice. Once I'm happy with the volume, there's one other thing I typically adjust, and that is under the auto button here under the track. You're given 3 options: fades, gains, and pan. Now I'm not very familiar with gain or pan, but I do know what a fade is, so I'm going to choose that. And then I get these little anchors where I can fade in and out the music. So for each section of music I can fade it in and out. I'll typically just fade in the first, and then I'll go to the very last one, and I will fade it out. And then you can preview your podcast. Hello students, here's what's happening these next 2 weeks in class. So in just a few minutes I have created a podcast with some music, and it didn't really take too long at all. I am going to show you a little bit about how to do some editing, and then in a moment I'll show you how to do some more fancy tricks for your podcasting if you want to do some more advanced editing. There was a little bit of silence here. Now you can see I have the ability just to quickly trim the start by clicking and dragging. I'm going to use this selection tool just to show you what you might do for something in the middle. So let's say that you coughed in the middle of your podcast and you want to just edit that part out. If you pick this selection tool here, you can draw around a section, and I can tell from how those lines move up and down that this is all silence. And then I can go up to my edit menu. I can copy that entire selection, I can cut it, I can do a lot of different things here. I can even split it, so I have two different sections if I wanted to split it into different tracks, so that I can move it to different tracks. I'm going to go ahead and just cut it. Now if I zoom in, I can see that I left just a little bit of the beginning part not included in my selection. So I'll just continue zooming in until I can see that a little bit better. There, much easier to see. Now I'll just select it with my mouse and hit the delete button. Now before I put this on my website, I do want to do a little bit of advanced editing to it. This is optional, but here's some things you can do to spice up your podcasts. So first I'm going to try and find the section in my announcement where I talked about the due date of the project that was due on Friday, and I really want to emphasize that. So I'm just going to use my preview until I find the section where I say the word Friday. Your Unit 3 rock cycle projects are due this Friday. And as I was watching, I can see that this peak in these lines here is when I said the word Friday. So I want to use my selection tool, and I'm going to draw around that selection. First, I'm going to split the clip at the selection, and this just allows me to move the rest of it over, and I want to repeat the word Friday 3 times. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it in. Okay, I think I want room for one more Friday, so I'm going to paste in one more time. And then I'll squeeze this back together. Let's see how it sounds. Do this Friday, Friday, Friday. The direction. Sounds pretty good. I can right click on each one of these and really add some cool audio effects too, though, to really make students pay attention to that. I'm going to right click on the first clip where I say Friday, and I'm going to click Add Effects. And when you right click on a clip segment and choose Add Effects, it pulls up this little window here. Friday. Click play, you can see what it says, or what the current effect is, which is none. And I'm going to add an effect. I'm going to add a little bit of reverb. And then there's a lot of different things I can adjust. I'm just going to click play and see how I like it as is. Friday, Friday. And I'm going to go with the default, but you can play around with all these different adjustments and see what you like. I'm going to click apply. So now you can see that when I hover over this first one, it does say FX. I'm going to apply that same effect to each one of the segments where I said Friday. Okay, so I've added an effect to each one of those 3 segments where I said Friday. Let's just see how it sounds. Unit 3 rock cycle projects are due this Friday, Friday, Friday. Alright, I like that better. The next thing I want to do is really emphasize that the final exam is less than 2 weeks away, so I'm going to find that section. And, procrastinators, please listen up. Something big is approaching soon. Right, the final exam is less than 2 weeks away. So I'm going to zoom out, really narrow down. It looks like this section I want to adjust is from here to here. Let me preview it one more time. That's right, the final exam is less than 2 weeks away. Alright, so I've got it narrowed down. I'm going to use that selection tool again and draw around the area I want to add an effect to. I'm going to go to the edit menu, and I'm going to split the clip at the selection. This just allows me to apply the effect just to this segment and not to the entire track. I'm going to right click on it, add an effect, and this time I'm going to try adjusting the pitch.
So wait, that's right, the final exam.
So I'm going to adjust the pitch. I think that is that's definitely going to get their attention. So I'm going to click apply. Again, I can see that there's an effect applied to this. I haven't saved my work for a while, which is not a great idea. So I'm going to go ahead and take a break and save my work. After I save, I'm prompted to mix it down. Mixing it down is basically removing the file out of Aviary, taking it with you elsewhere. I'm going to wait on that, and I'm going to continue working on my project. Another thing you can do to have a little bit of fun with is add in some clips from other songs. Now, the copyright guideline on using songs is that you should use no more than 30 seconds of a song. So you can upload songs that you own and add even some more fun effects to your podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and upload a song. Just go to the file menu and you import audio. I'm going to browse to the song on my computer. And I'm going to use the final countdown. I have a series of steps that I need to go through. I'm just going to click next. I'm going to leave everything set just the way it is. And click upload. Once the upload is finished, you'll see that the song appears over here in my imported files. So the first one I want to do is add part of Queen's We Will Rock You to the part of the announcement that talks about the rock cycle projects being due on Friday. So I'm going to locate that in my timeline. I can tell it's pretty much right before the three parts where I say Friday, Friday, Friday.
That's right. Your Unit 3 rock cycle projects are due this.
So before the this right, I'm going to add in a little bit of space, and I want to put in the We Will Rock You section. So I'm going to go ahead and use the selection tool. And I want to go ahead and split the clip here. Yeah, if I'm planning this ahead of time, it's always a little bit better. Now I have to zoom out and basically give a little bit of empty space here on my timeline. Now all I've done is kind of space out my narration on track 1 just to kind of allow a little bit of empty silence for the Queen song to play in. So I'm going to pull in the Queen song down onto a new track, and I'm going to try and isolate just the section of the song where we hear We Will Rock You. Now as I'm trying to preview, it's going to play all the tracks at one time. So I'm just going to mute tracks 1 and 2 just for a moment so I can really focus on isolating the part of the song that I want. Alright, so I can roughly see where that is. I'm going to zoom in and select just the section of the song that I want. Okay, so I put my red marker here to kind of give me a clue as to where I want to select. I'm going to use that selection tool, and I'm going to draw around the section of the song that I want to keep. It's definitely less than 30 seconds. Alright, I'm going to use the edit menu and go to copy, and then I'm going to go to a new track and paste. Okay, I'm going to mute track 3 and just see what I've got here. Ah, and that looks perfect. So I'm going to go up to track 3 where the full song is, and I'm just going to delete that song because this is the only part that I want. And now I'm going to move it up to track 3 and turn off the mute. Let me zoom out a little bit and I'll show you what my next steps are. Okay, so I've zoomed out. I'm back in that spot where I created an empty space here in my narration where I wanted this song to kind of come in. I'm going to just go ahead and drag it up now to track 1. And I wanted just a little bit of space between my narration, and so then I'll just go through and kind of squeeze this all back together. Let me give you a preview of what I've done so far.
The 100-point project assignment due this week. That's right.
Now I think I'll go ahead and squeeze this together. So I'm going to do a little bit of squeezing this together. I also want to add a clip from Europe's The Final Countdown before my section for that. So I'm just going to repeat that process. I'm going to go ahead and drag in the song here on a track, isolate the area I want, trim that out, and put it in. So let me go ahead and pause the video while I work on that, and then I'll show you my final steps. Alright, well I paused the recording, I went ahead and found the section in the Europe song that I want to use for the podcast and trimmed it down, and now I'm just going to drag that up into track number 1 and unmute this track. I could leave it down on track 3 if I wanted to apply any special effects to it, but I'm really worried about getting these lined up just right So I'm going to go ahead and put it up on track 1 so I can squeeze all of my audio segments together. I also recorded just a little end segment using the record button basically that just said that's the podcast for today. And then I want to finish it off with this, again, section from Europe Song. And I do want to fade this part out. So I'm going to go into the auto, go into my fades, and fade out that last section. Alright, so now I have my finished podcast. I'm just going to listen to a little bit of it, make sure everything sounds good. I'm going to unmute all my tracks.
Other students is approaching soon.
Okay, probably not my best podcast ever, but that one will work for the website. So now what I'm ready to do is to go ahead and mix this down to put it into my Google site or my classroom site or wherever I want it to go. I'm going to go ahead and click the mix down button. Once the mix down process is finished, again, you can see I can play my recording, again, download an MP3 or WAV format. When I'm in my public Aviary account and not in the one associated with my Google Docs, I also just get the web link to my file. And if there's any Aviary people listening, I really miss that in the account that's associated with my Google Docs, because a lot of times I'd rather just have students send me the link to their file rather than having them always have to embed it. Right now, for some reason, the direct link to that is missing. I want to use an MP3 player anyway, so it's not a big deal for me. But that is a feature I'd like to see added back into my Aviary account. For right now, I'm just going to find the MP3 player embed code and click copy it. Now I simply need to switch over to my Google site. Make sure I'm on my Aviary audio page. And then I need to go into the editor. Now we're going to be pasting in some HTML code. You don't need to know HTML code, you just need to know where to put it, where to copy and paste. I'm going to go into the HTML code source button here, which is on the toolbar. And I just want to make sure that I put this code at the end. I want it at the end of what I already have here. So I'll usually just go down to the bottom of where all the code is listed, and I'll hit enter. And then I will paste in that code I copied from Aviary. Again, you don't need to understand any of this code, you just need to be able to paste it in and click update. We have a gadget in here, and it comes with a couple of links that I don't love. This sends it back to my editor and to Aviary, and I just go in and I remove these links, and I'm going to rename this gadget. To see if everything worked properly, you'll need to click Save. And you can see I have an MP3 player embedded on my website now, and I can click play to see how it turned out.
Hello students, here's what's happening these next 2 weeks in class.
Everything sounds great. If anything didn't copy in well, I would just go back to Aviary, recopy that MP3 player code, and go back to Google, making sure that I paste in everything just as it is. And that is how I use Aviary to make podcasts for my websites.